A teardrop of liquid obsidian entered the terran atmosphere at an angle designed to minimize friction. It did not burn, it hummed as the craft transitioned from the vacuum of space into the pressurized embrace of the nitrogen oxygen mix. The sound changed from a hollow silence to a low, velvet vibration. The archivist sat within the core. There were no chairs, only a suspension field that cradled the form in the state of the perpetual weightlessness. To the archivist, gravity was not a burden, it was a physical texture. It felt like being wrapped in a heavy, cool damp cloth. The ship settled in the field of wild lavender on the edge of a coastal town. The lavender stalks did not snap, they bowed. The hull of the ship, colder than the surrounding air, caused a microscopic layer of frost to form instantly on the purple buds. The archivist opened the sensory aperture. The first recording began. Log 0.1. The archivist whispered. The voice was a layered frequency, sound like wind moving through the silver pipe. The planet is loud, not with sound, but with intent. The biological inhabitants are currently in the state of high frequency oscillation. They call it living. I call it great scattering. The archivist drifted toward a small wooden dwelling. It was 3 a.m., the hour when the human mind is most prone to the loop. Inside the kitchen, the archivist observed the objects. To a human, this room was a catalogue of unfinished tasks. To the archivist, it was a gallery of potential energy. There was a stack of mail on the counter. The archivist moved close enough to hear the paper fibers settling under their own weight. The inhabitants feel shame for the piles, the archivist recorded. They did not see the beauty of the stack. Each envelope represents a connection, a tether to the outside world. The fact that they remain unopened is not a failure of will, it is a preservation of energy. They are waiting for the right resonance to act. The archivist turned to the sink. A single porcelain mug sat in the basin, half filled with water. A drop of water fell from the faucet. The archivist paused. They waited. The rhythm was perfect. It was a natural metronome. The archivist synced the internal processor to the drip. Observation. The archivist murmured. The humans seek to silence the drip. They find it irritating because it reminds them of time passing. They do not realize that the drip is the only thing in the room that is currently certain. It is a heartbeat for a house that is holding its breath. The archivist glided into the hallway. The floorboards were old oak. As the archivist's gravitational field passed over them, the wood groaned, not a sharp sound, but a deep, resonant wood on wood friction. They entered the room where a human lay in a state of pre sleep status. The human's eyes were moving behind their lids. The archivist deployed the neural scanner not to read thoughts but to visualize the shape of the attention. It looked like a nebula, threads of bright neon blue, tangled with deep violet swirls, and bright sparks of gold. The subject is not resting, the archivist noted. The subject is dopamine hunting. Their brain is searching for a hook, a singular point of interest to latch onto so that the rest of the nebula can go quiet. They are trying to find the end of the circle. The archivist sat in the corner. They did not move for 42 minutes. This was body doubling, the alien practice of providing a stable gravitational anchor. By being still, the archivist created a localized field of lowered expectation. In this field, there was no should, there was only is. The archivist pulled out a focus stone. It was a jagged piece of asteroid glass, polished by 1,000 years of solar wind. The archivist began to turn it over in their long, translucent fingers. The sound was rhythmic, predictable. It provided an external tick for the human's internal talk. Gradually, the nebula in the human's mind began to settle. The gold sparks dimmed, the blue threads lengthened, the brain waves transitioned into the long, slow swells of calm ocean. Leaving the house, the archivist moved into the woods. The forest was the archivist's favorite laboratory. Here, scatteredness was the law of the land. The archivist stopped before a fern. Humans typed for a square. The archivist recorded. They build boxes. They write in the lines. They schedule in blocks. But the universe is not a square. The universe is a fern. The archivist traced the frond. Each leaf was a miniature version of the whole. If you zoomed in, the pattern repeated forever. The sound of a thumb brushing against a dry leaf. The archivist moved deeper toward the hidden stream. The water moved over stones that had been smoothed over centuries. The sound was a complex layer of frequencies. The high-pitched tinkle of water hitting air bubbles and the low, guttural gurgle of water moving through hollows under the blank. The archivist sat by the water. They began to sort stones. One stone, rough like sandpaper. Another stone, smooth like wet soap. Another stone, cold, holding the mountain's winter. Clack clack, the stones meeting. The archivist shifted their resonance, moving from the forest to the heart of nearby metropolis. The city was a different kind of forest, one made of glass, copper, and urgency. The archivist stood on a skyscraper, looking down at the grid. To the humans below, the noise was a burden. To the archivist, it was a symphony of micro tasks. The hiss of air brakes on a bus, the clack 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 of high heels on marble, the hum of the power lines vibrating at exactly 60 cycles per second. The city is a machine built to manage the scattering, the archivist noted. But the machine is too fast. It creates more input than the biological processors. The subject here are vibrating at the frequency of overwhelm. The archivist found a park, a small square of green trapped between grey towers. In the center was a fountain. The archivist focused on the water. It was being pumped up and falling down over and over. The archivist recorded the sound and broadcast it back into the immediate area on a sub-audible frequency. It was a frequency mask. It didn't silence the city. It gave the city a core. It turned the chaos in a background texture, allowing the mind to find the focus point. The key to the scattered mind, the archivist whispered into the log, is not the removal of noise, it is the introduction of a dominant rhythm. Give the mind a beat and it will dance. Give it silence and it will invent its own screams. The archivist returned to the ship. The interior was now filled with the samples of the night. These were not physical samples, but resonance pairs. The archivist floated among them, touching each one to play back to the data. Touch, the sound of the lavender brushing the hull. Touch, the sound of the soap bubble popping in the sink. Touch, the sound of the forest stream. Touch, the sound of the human slow breathing. I am building a library, the archivist said. A library of the unnoticed. When the species finally burns itself out from trying to be linear, they will need these sounds. They will need to remember that a half-finished cup of tea is a beautiful thing. The archivist picked up a final tool, a small silver needle that hummed with a soft blue light. They began to etch the night's findings onto a plate of pure carbon. The sound was incredibly satisfying. It was the sound of a sharp point meeting a hard surface. It was the sound of a thought becoming permanent. As the sun began to rise, casting a pale lemon yellow light over the field of lavender, the archivist prepared to departure. The ship's hull began to ripple, the liquid obsidian turning into a mirror-like chrome to reflect the morning sky. Final log entry, the archivist stated. The voice was now very soft, almost a whisper, blending with the sound of the morning wind. The planet Earth is not a place of order. It is a beautiful place, persistent and necessary chaos. The inhabitants who feel the most scattered are often the ones who are the most in tune with the planet's true nature. They are the ones who notice the spider webs. They are the ones who hear the music in the dripping faucet. They are the ones who see the patterns in the clouds while everyone else is looking at the ground. The archivist looked at a small wooden house one last time. To be scattered is not to be broken. To be scattered is not to be broken. To be scattered is to be a star that has not yet decided to become a sun. It is a state of infinite potential. The ship rose. There was no fire, no roar, just a slight displacement of air. The lavender bent one last time. The frost melted, turning back into dew. The dew ran down, hitting the earth with a sound that no human heard. But the archivist heard it, and in the archive it was recorded forever. A single, perfect, finished task. The archivist traveled back into the velvet black of the vacuum. The stars were quiet here, but the archivist's ship was full of the earth's noise. The archivist closed their eyes, or the sensory equivalent of eyes, and let the recordings play in a loop. The sounds layered over each other, creating a thick, protective blanket of audio. The archivist drifted. The ship drifted. The universe continued to expand, branching out in every direction, growing in beautiful, unpredictable fractals. And in the center of the archive, everything was exactly where it needed to be.